Hey, it's Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast. Games get 10 times better when Michelob Ultra is on the line, so race to the bottom of a slope. Winner gets an Ultra. Or enter at michelobultra.com/ultra instructor for a chance to win tickets to the hottest sporting events of 2026. Michelob Ultra, Ultra Instructor, no purchase necessary. Open to U.S. residents 21 plus. Begins on January 30th, 2026. Ends on February 22nd, 2026. See official rules at michelobultra.com/rules for free entry deadlines, prizes, and details.
Well, the holidays have come and gone once again, but if you've forgotten to get that special someone in your life a gift, well, Mint Mobile is extending their holiday offer of half off unlimited wireless. So here's the idea. You get it now, you call it an early present for next year. What do you have to lose? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Limited time 50% off regular price for new customers. Upfront payment required. $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan. Taxes and fees extra. Speeds may slow after 50 gigabytes per month when network is busy. See terms.
No question about that. It's supported by you, our listeners, on patreon.com/NQAT pod or on Apple Podcast subscriptions. Backers get ad-free episodes every week and a bonus show where we talk about something to do with United or football around the Premier League and Europe. We very much value your support. And now on with the show. Welcome to No Question About That. This is United Inc., our finance pod with Jamie and me, Ed. Jamie, how is it going?
Yeah, good. You know, we're off the back of, 3 wins in a row for the second time this season. Hopefully, fingers crossed, another one to follow shortly against Spurs, but we will see.
Lads, it's Spurs. Well, after we got 3 wins before under Ruben Amorim, he shit the bed and decided he was going to go back to his old tactics. He didn't like the idea of winning games. That was the problem, I think. Anyway, we're going to talk post-transfer windows. A really quiet transfer window in the Premier League. 33 transfers. The overall figure is like £400 million. It looks big compared to other European leagues, but for reasons which are different than post-COVID reasons, I think. A lot of clubs are holding fire, including United, who did no incoming deals, a few loans out. So we'll talk a little bit about what does that mean for the finances? What does it mean for the summer transfer window? Just how large is Sir Jim going to go in the transfer market? We'll talk a little bit about United's commercials, big piece in The Athletic this week. I have to say, talk about rage bait. We were talking about rage bait before we came on. That made me angry. The Glazers are concerned about our commercial performance. Yeah, I'd be concerned if one of them was drowning. Not concerned enough to pull them out of a river, but, concerned. Anyway, post-window financials. Why did United hold fire? Is it because we're broke?
That's one way of putting it. No, I think, look, that's definitely playing a part, right? Like, we've talked about it in the past and I've kind of done the numbers on it. The cash flow that the business is generating this season is basically paying off historical transfers. There's about 180, 190 million of net transfer payables that we need to pay. So when the club, I think, have talked about, we're only going to go after long-term targets, in case an opportunity pops up, I think that what that really means is we need to keep our, powder dry until the summer, because the reality is we do only have 55 million left on the revolving credit facility. And I think, add that into the fact that we've now got Carrick, who's not technically an interim, but at the moment only here for 6 months.
Yeah.
I think that just makes it harder to do deals, right? Like if you're trying to go after an Elliot Anderson or a Baleba or even a Semenyo, it's hard to convince them on the long-term story whilst we're still in flux.
Yeah, I think that's all fair. So you've got the strategic piece and you've got the financial piece. So the financial piece you've laid out, not a lot of room on the revolving credit facility. There wasn't a lot of cash on hand either, and a lot of net payables, which isn't really debt. It's often lumped in newspaper reports as debt, but it's operational costs. It's like saying, it doesn't matter anyway. I won't make a stupid analogy.
It's much to my disdain that it gets included in debt, but yeah.
There you go. Like finance nerds here complaining about how it's reported. But that puts the club in not a perilous financial position because it's still generating revenue. and we're in a pretty good position to qualify for European competition next season, but they have to think squad construction. I think that plays into the strategic piece, which is top down. So it's driven from the recruitment departments of Ivel and technical department and operations, Wilcox and Barada, and I guess the owners to some extent. And that's, Sun's coach, right? They're going to try and drive this whatever the coach thinks. We saw Amrim threw his toys out of the pram because of that. But you do have to sell the vision to players as well. Yeah. And they want to have a hit rate on transfers, which is really, really high. And I think you can put so much of United's financial difficulties and performance issues down to having a very poor hit rate on transfers. And since Ineos have come in, it's a pretty good hit rate. I mean, you can question Ugarte, was it really one of theirs? It was very early in their time. He's not been a hit, but they will get basically their money back, probably-ish, sort of, around about.
Don't think we'd make a loss on him in terms of book value.
Book value, yeah. And Xerxes the same. You'll be able to get 20 million euros for him, I imagine. Yeah. And so there's these two things playing side by side, right? They're not going to get someone just short term. And I think we can all I feel a bit conflicted. I wrote my Substack piece on this strategy. Like, the risk is Casemiro gets injured, we lose a bunch of games because Ugarte has to go in there. The midfield no longer functions because it doesn't have a good profile with Kobbie Mainoo in there, and we drop out the Champions League places because it's still super tight, and Chelsea and Liverpool and Aston Villa go in, and we're in the Europa League, and we still have to have a big squad next year without any of the revenues, right? That's the risk.
Yeah.
And so the opportunity was bolster, mitigate that risk by getting another midfielder in, and they decided to not do that. It's good enough to make the Champions League if we don't get injuries or suspensions.
Yeah, and a bit like yourself, and we've discussed it in the past. They're in a bit of between a rock and a hard place, right? Like, if there is an injury to someone like Casemiro, everyone is going to throw their toys out of the pram, a la Ruben Amorim, and say, "Oh, this is exactly the reason why you should have bought someone." But we know that if you're going to buy someone outright, you're probably adding 20, 30, 40% premium onto their price because everyone knows why you're trying to buy someone early. And then similarly, trying to get someone in on a loan, we've seen it in the past with the likes of Sabitzer. It's quite a tall ask to ask someone to come in, hit the ground running, either hit the ground running immediately or in the 2 or 3 games that they play, hit the ground running immediately, because to your point, if there isn't an injury, how are you going to convince a player to come in on loan because they know that they're going to be playing second fiddle to Casemiro and Mainoo? Mm-hmm. So it's risky, but there's nothing comes without some element of risk.
Yeah, absolutely. And the bid they attempted for Semenyo, it was a little bit ham-fisted, it seems. Who knows? It appears to be Semenyo's people who have been pointing out to the press that United lowballed the offer. They've not typically lowballed wages. No. Maybe that's a new strategy. I don't know, but he wasn't on big wages at Bournemouth for sure. But it shows that they were willing to spend if it was one of the players they wanted anyway.
Totally. And the low ball on wages, I think whether they did or not, we don't know. However, City are in the Champions League, and therefore, naturally, his wages are just going to be higher there. Yeah. So, it could have been the same basic wage, but the bonuses were different. Is that lowballing? I'm not so sure.
Yeah. Do you think Semenyo will get a bonus when City are playing in the Championship? asking for a friend here. The anniversary of 115 charges, 3 years to the day since the Premier League charged City. I think it's actually the wrong way to think about it. It's more than 7 years since Football Leaks published all that stuff. And which German newspaper was it? I forget now. Not Bild. The other one. The Spiegel published all this stuff. It's the written version of catching someone on video, stabbing someone in the heart, isn't it? It's just a bit guilty. It's just they were guilty hundreds of times and makes it really complicated. Anyway, I won't get sidetracked with that nonsense. Patreon.com/NQATpod. I did a whole piece with Adam a couple of weeks ago celebrating City's charges and talking about what it means. But it is a kind of stain on the Premier League that it's taken this long. I mean, you've got Leicester, who are just docked 6 points for a £20 million overrun. I mean, that's really small fry. That really is like getting sent to prison for life for stealing a Mars bar out of a local shop, that one, compared to City.
We can only hope that there is some
Justice.
form of action soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, and soon.
Yeah. So what does it mean for the summer then? So, you know,
Yeah.
if we're clear on what the strategy is and we kind of assume that they went for defenders one window, attackers the next one, let's, put 2 and 2 and make 5 and say it's midfielders this time round and we can all look at the squad. How big can United go? I mean, there's a lot of headroom in the squad cost ratio calculations for next season.
To a degree. Depends on the scenario, I would say. If we get Champions League, then there is a stack full of headroom.
Yeah.
If we don't, I think we'll probably be quite close to the 70%. Obviously,
70%, yeah.
we're not in Europe, so we could go to 85%, which does add a bit more capacity, and there'll be some big earners that we know will be dropping off. So I think, look, capacity, probably isn't that much of an issue. Baseline, say we don't get the Champions League, our EBITDA will probably be around about, 200 million quid, assuming we get into the Europa League. So that's the cash that we're going to generate, and effectively, less interest costs, so like call it 170. That's going to be the kind of slush fund to go after players. Now, the piece that I wrote this week was all about the necessity of the academy, not just from like a romantic perspective, but actually there's a lot of economical reasons. As like, I don't like talking about it, but I kind of have to. 170 million without the Champions League. Even with the Champions League, the net benefit is probably going to be about 50 million quid to the bottom line. So you're still only talking just over 200 million, right?
Yeah.
Options on top, great. In terms of Rashford and Højlund, so that could be more firepower. But the challenge is going to be the players that we're looking to buy. So, say we went for 2 midfielders. The reality is that's probably going to be the best part of 150 million, if not more.
Yeah.
And even if we buy 2, I'm guessing that probably at least 2 midfielders are going to be leaving. It's going to be Casemiro plus one other. Yeah,
Ugarte will be sold. I mean, it's the policy, isn't it? So it's 2 years, and if you failed, you're gone. If they're going to stick to that, he'll be sold.
And 2 in, 2 out. In a scenario where you've not got the Champions League, okay, still risky, but you need some support. Will we buy that in, or have we got one of the Fletcher brothers who can help with that, as an example? So, even though there could be quite a lot of cash there to spend, those 2 midfielders are going to take a good chunk of that. Add in a probably first choice left back, maybe another winger, maybe even a centre back or a right back. All of a sudden, you're like, actually, that cash is not going to go very far. And in a world where we've got Champions League football, so at least an extra, realistically, 5 games. So that's home. So 10, because we'd probably get through to the knockout rounds. All of a sudden, your squad's looking quite thin.
Very thin. Yeah. I mean, I do agree with you. Like, there's the financial aspect of the academy. You can just see this week, City sold Oscar Bob for 27 million plus bonuses. I think a sell-on as well, if I'm right in saying. And they've just repeatedly done that. And so have Chelsea. Chelsea's model's slightly different now. I mean, they were very good at doing this. Now the whole squad is up for sale all of the time because it's just their policy and how they operate. But City have had, Pep was talking this week about their net spend. And a lot of the reason why their net spend doesn't look quite as aggressive on paper, at least, is because they've been able to sell academy players. Now, the wages are through the roof. That's really a much better arbiter of success. But still, he's right. They are not anywhere near United in the net spend over the last 5 years. And a lot of the reason is because they've sold a lot of academy players. And like the romantic in me is like, I want academy players in the first team. But if they're not going to be first team, giving them some first-team exposure so you can then sell them for a decent amount of money. When's the last time we actually sold an academy player for a lot of money?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, Rashford may go for £26 million this summer, but he's now a senior player on a mega wage, and Barcelona are already trying to negotiate, according to reports.
Yeah.
So, and I don't see any of the current academy players coming out with a big fee, really. I mean, we know there's some talented ones. Bianchieri there was a lot of interest in him from overseas. He's decided to stay in the country to get more experience. He's obviously looking at, a career here, perhaps at United. But there isn't another one that would come on big fee this summer. I don't see where that's going to augment our budget.
Every sip of Coca-Cola brings you closer to the excitement of the FIFA World Cup 26. Because nothing compares to the joy. So grab a Coke and drink in the FIFA World Cup 26. No purchase necessary. 13 plus in 50 U.S. states and D.C. with a web-enabled device. Ends March 1st with 8 entry periods. Rules at cokeurl.com/soccerrules.
Have you ever wanted to make your own Super Bowl commercial? This year, Uber Eats is putting their commercial in your hands and letting you build your own version right in the Uber Eats app. It's kind of like building a burrito bowl. You pick your scenes like ingredients, pick the celebrities you want to see, and watch your commercial come to life. Plus, you can even unlock a deal. There are over 1,000 variations to make. Give it a try. Just open the Uber Eats app, tap the football icon, and make yours now. Promotions while supplies last.
On February 13th, Crime 101 hits theaters.
What is it that you do?
I take high-value items and make them disappear.
So you're a thief.
One crime connects them all.
I'm getting close. I know it.
But only one will walk away.
I underestimated you.
Chris Hemsworth, Mark Ruffalo, Barry Keoghan, and Halle Berry.
We're good at this.
Yeah.
Crime 101, directed by Bart Layton. Rated R, under 17 on admitted without parent. Special sneak previews Monday, everywhere February 13th.
No, totally. And look, again, there is clearly value in having a model where you can sell academy products for big fees. The purist in me doesn't really like it. And if I think about the way the rules are evolving, I actually think whilst it's going to be important, there is also going to be a value to keeping those players, right? Because you are saving on a transfer fee and zero amortization means that you've got more budget to go elsewhere where you do want to buy players.
Yeah.
So
wages are typically lower as well.
I mean, yeah, I go on, again, the purist view where, no, they should get the same. Whether that always happens, as we both know, that isn't always the case.
Hey, anyone who's got a job, check out the career path, promotion and earnings of people who move around jobs versus stay in the company for 10 years. Yeah, everyone knows this game, right? And he works in football too. A little bit.
Yeah. Oh, well, and we saw it on the overlap when, was it Neville was sharing some of his details about his contracts with Roy Keane.
Mm-hmm.
He was on, I think, like $2 million a year during his peak playing days. And I think Carragher was probably, I think he said he was on 3 or 4 times that. You're kind of like, it's, as you say, it's a well-known trick. But, back to the main point, I at the very least, if we had 3 players from the academy in the first team squad, I think that kind of justifies the $30 million a year that we're spending on the academy. Yeah. And that's before you start to kind of sell players on, even if it's for £5-10 million.
Yeah, it's and also like the other way. Yeah, of course, the obvious other financial benefit is you can sell older players if an academy player is coming through, right? Just make the decision that one is better than another. I mean, Chelsea are sort of in this position. It's not exactly the same, but Estevao is coming through. They did pay money for him, but it already looks like a good deal, and he's in the same position. Cole Palmer, they could sell Cole Palmer for $100 million, and now you look like you've got some good trading there. Not that I'm suggesting this, but if, for example, Shea Lacey keeps developing and we really like him, do you need both Ahmad and Mbeumo at the same time? No, you could sell one. I'm not suggesting that we do, but if you think about squad construction, we're actually going to be in a weird position where we've got 3 of them who are all really talented in the same position. It's not awesome. Yeah. And no one on the other side, really, because Cunha's not really a left winger in a 4-2-3-1. So does Shea Lacey want to play off the left? Maybe.
I'm sure if you asked him, he would probably say yes.
He would play in goal if you asked him, of course, because that's the other thing. I mean, it's a non-financial point, but academy players coming through, they have an affinity and association with the club. Usually. I mean, ask Alejandro Garnacho whether he feels affinity with United. Probably not, since he's a snarky cunt every time he's asked about it. But I know it's of interest. So Jim has talked about it a lot, about the academy and the standards in the academy. And Ruben Amorim did, but not in the right way because he made it personal. Yeah. He should have made it generic.
Yeah, totally.
And so it's important financially, squad construction, because otherwise you just have to go spend way more money than your rivals.
Yeah, the reality is, I think we could even be another 2 windows away from having a real, squad in the profile that we want, not just in terms of technical capabilities, but the right age profiles with players coming through. That's still going to take some time. So, this whole, are we going to spend like crazy? We might end up doing that, but it's still not going to fix everything. And I think, the message that I'm trying to be, or that I have been pushing this week, is Champions League qualification isn't the silver bullet. We need, if we get it consistently, i.e. 2+ years, maybe, because then you've got the commercial kicker.
Yeah. All right, let's talk a little bit about commercials as well, because obviously there was that piece in The Athletic. Some of it's grounded in the fact that United's shirt sleeve sponsor is about to run out this summer. It's not obvious that DXC will be renewing. They've been a partner for quite a long time now. There isn't a training kit or training ground sponsor. That's been an empty gap. That's a 15 to 20 million pound gap. And if we're not in the Champions League next season, we'll get another 10 million pound fine from Adidas. I don't know whether it's not really a fine, is it? Reduction in contract, which obviously happened this year as well. They changed the terms of the contract, didn't they? So, oh no, do we have to miss out 2 years in a row to get that 10 million fine, or is it 1 year? I forget now.
No. So the renegotiated Adidas deal that was 90 million pounds per year, but 80 if we weren't in the Champions League, that actually only came into effect this season.
Right.
So when I don't think many people did kind of realize this, but versus last season, our sponsorship revenue from Adidas actually went up year on year, despite not being in the Champions League.
Yeah.
And so so I think it went from 70 up to 80. So it will stay at 80 if we don't qualify again. And I think it may come down a little bit, but that's the kind of mechanism. Before, to your point, it was we needed to not qualify for 2 years to get penalised. Now it is whenever we don't qualify.
Yeah, fair enough. So, I mean, but still, it's a 15% uplift or something like that. And quick mental maths on that one. And the shirt sleeve sponsor, I forget, that's like 15 million a year, something like that. It's a fair chunk.
15 to 20, I think, yeah.
All right. And training ground still haven't got that. That was Aon, there was DHL for a while, wasn't it? Yeah. And that's another 15 to 20. All of this adds up to a fair chunk of cash. And, it's a fair chunk of cash that could be spent.
Totally. I think the combination of training kit, training ground, and shirt sleeve, cautiously, 55 to 60 million pounds a year on the table. That's a player.
That's a player. It certainly is a player. The line in The Athletic that made me laugh most of all, and I don't know where the sourcing on this one was, and they were concerned they were not selling enough NFTs. I was like, Jesus fucking Christ, dude.
Yeah. I'm surprised that made it onto the headline of the tweet, concerned that we're not minting enough NFTs. I'm like, I'm not sure that's the problem.
No. I do worry they may be looking at FIFA and going, FIFA got a few tricks here. $300 for parking, dynamic pricing. I'm sure they'd love to do that. They could get away with it. The protest that happened against Fulham, I agree with all the sentiments of the anger of the fans. Obviously, the fan experience has been degraded. You're moving people, prices are going up. We may be on the cusp of personal seat licensing, not quite dynamic pricing yet, although I'm sure they would love to do it if they could. The way tickets are allocated, especially for European games. It all ruins the fan experience. And there's still the debt and still high commercialization of the club and all of this kind of stuff. So I recognize that. It wasn't a clear message, which I think when you're protesting, you really should have. And that is very hard when you have a disparate fan base, of course. And the 58 group have done more than anyone else to unify protests. So, a lot of props to them. But I think sometimes what they want is diluted. But I would be breaking into Old Trafford and destroying stuff if they go fully down the FIFA route.
No, I completely agree. I do think the Premier League in general, but also United, do need to take a long, hard look at themselves in terms of this. I get the US model in the NFL makes a ton of money, right? Mm-hmm. However, it's a completely different product. The Premier League football and football more broadly is largely built on the fan culture. And the reason why people, tourists from all around the world want to go to Old Trafford or wherever, is because they want to take part, singing the songs. I've seen it, I've seen tourists around me when I'm there. You will have seen it as well, Ed. If you start to get rid of that, you don't have a USP. And I completely agree. I think the last protest, it lacked a sense of direction. I'm also concerned with the direction on these sorts of issues under Ineos. The one caveat that I do still have is I'm taking into account the current financial situation. And so whilst I don't necessarily agree with it, I can understand why they're doing some of the measures. It's more of a question of if they carry on to do that, say when we qualify for the Champions League, that's the point where you're like, no, this is egregious now. Stop taking the mick.
It's hard to roll some of that back. Yeah. And so once you've, turned on the tap, the incentives to turn it off again. I mean, I have to say, someone who now lives in the US and actively sees what happens with any kind of live event, people would really not like it. Right? So it's very, very, very expensive. And it's not just for the big headline stuff, right? So there's a Taylor Swift concert and there may be 50 of them on a tour, but locally it's the only one. It's the same reason why the FIFA World Cup is I think they feel like they'll sell out most games, because even if there are 100 and whatever games, it's a big country and locally there's only 5 or 6 or something like that. And it's a once in a lifetime type thing. So, but it's not even the big headline stuff that becomes really expensive because of the way ticketing is done. If you want to go and see a non-name comedian or musician, especially here in Seattle or any big city where they may have a minimum wage as well. So the business support costs are high. The ticketing prices are really high. They are often dynamic, not always. And the ticketing fees are really high as well. And it ends up then being an eye-watering sum for even someone who's not a headline name. And for the headline names, like Manchester United, who have a global supporter base, not just local, 46,000 season tickets. And I'm sure they'd like fewer than that. Because they're leaving money on the table. And this is part of the anger and the protest, because I think everyone can kind of see this coming and where it might go. And I'm sure the Glazers realise that if it was fully dynamic with fewer season ticket holders, that they would make more money out of matchday revenue.
Totally. And Bayern Munich have talked about their quote unquote ideal mix within their stadium. And they talk about it as in terms of a third. So a third in terms of your, I don't like to use this term, but everyday fan. Mm-hmm. A third being your tourist, and then a third being your hospitality. And it's kind of interesting when you look at Bayern Munich versus other German clubs, how different their stadiums are in terms of atmosphere, vibe, for want of a better word, versus, say, even a Borussia Dortmund.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's completely different.
It is. And look at Bayern Munich's AGM. Every year there are protests, and the fans, unfortunately, seem to have lost control of that because the board is looking at it. And someone like Bayern Munich, there's no shareholders to profit from. So the fact that they chase money is not about taking money, extractive stuff from owners like we have, at least had. It's about competition with the rest of European clubs. And you've got this arms race. You've got this arms race in the Premier League. You've got this arms race amongst European clubs. And it pushes everyone to chase more and more and more revenue. Slightly different in the Premier League because you've got so many private equity or private equity-like owners who, like, they are chasing value of their asset in terms of Clear Lake or extracting money with the Glazers. And that is slightly different, but everyone has to compete, right? So there's nothing holding it back unless you get financial regulations that put some downward pressure on the finances. So, which UEFA's squad cost rule sort of does, doesn't it? But then you have FIFA Pro and other unions pushing back and saying, hey, anything that goes towards any kind of hard cap, is anti-competitive. And so everyone chases the money.
I mean, like, I get the FIFA Pro argument, but equally, I'm like, no cohort of, let's call them employees, have ever had it so good for so long. Mm-hmm. And the reality is, they are paid an extraordinary amount of money. Mm-hmm. And look, I completely sympathize with the physical aspect, the mental aspect. Like, it's not easy, effectively having to sprint 12 kilometers every 3 days in a high pressure environment. Like, I do get that. But, if people want the game to be financially sustainable, unfortunately, player wages and agent fees, there has to be a bit of a, rain check on it.
The agent fees particularly, it's not recycled in the game. It's just purely extractive. And it's because at least transfer fees are going from one club to another, and then they recycle that, and that makes, in theory, smaller clubs financially sustainable, or can. Of course, the Premier League have done an awful lot to change the nature of youth transfers and stuff like that, which is not always helpful for that particular process. But agent fees, it just goes, there's nothing being put back into the game. It's just making some dudes who are lawyers or grifters extremely rich. For what? What was the benefit? And it's really hard to tell. They're kind of a broker, sort of, and brokers do get fees. But if you buy a house in the UK, you're going to pay 1 to 1.5%, basically, as the seller wants. Here's an analogy for you. Washington State, where I live, there are 2 fees if you buy a house. There's a 3% fee for the seller and a 3% for the buyer. Makes a 6% fee. And often, until this year, you're allowed to play both sides of that as a real estate agent.
What?
Now that is, in theory, being banned. In practice, I'm not so sure. But so you can take a 6% fee versus 1 to 1.5 when you bought your house in London, right?
That's outrageous.
Yeah, it's outrageous. Outrageous. Yeah. But agents are taking, so, United do a £100 million deal for Elliot Anderson. Let's hope it's less than that. We'll pay probably a £10 million agent fee or something, maybe even more. Look at what happened with Paul Pogba. That was extremely high to Mino Raiola. So that's a 10% fee. What benefit is that to anyone? And FIFA, of course, were trying to fight this. It appears that they lost. Nick DeMarco sailed in. He doesn't lose many cases. He lost the Leicester one yesterday.
Well, but he's he's 1 out of 2 on that, and he won the first one.
He won the first one, which is just outrageous. He was like, loophole! Yeah. Jamie, if you ever get in deep trouble with whatever crime, hire him.
Yeah. It looked like, not that I plan to, but I'll find a way to contact him.
Yeah, from your prison cell. They're like, exactly how many hundreds of millions did you embezzle from this bank? I was like, I knew it. It looked like a wrong end to start with. Yeah. So on the commercials, it's basically performance on the pitch. Unless we see a strategy from other European clubs that United aren't deploying, which I don't think they are. They were the first to break partnerships down into regions as well as having global partners. There is no additional sponsorship. They are limited in terms of how many logos they can have and what size they can have on the shirts. There's obviously a certain amount of games where they can have the back of shirt sponsor. The sleeve sponsors come in. I don't think there's a plan on having a second sponsor like you have in some leagues.
Yeah.
Digital signage. There's this plan to potentially do like games for people around the world with these giant screens. We've seen that. Great. I don't know how much revenue that will truly drive. MUTV feels like an underexploited asset to me. It's always been treated as this niche product, and they cut a lot of the staff. The programming is quite bad at the moment. Some great people there, but I wonder whether that's underexploited.
Yeah, and do that, I think on that point, how do they tap into, say, like the YouTube digital media space? Yeah. Right, there's lots that they could do there with the archives, all of that sort of good stuff. Still, I can't remember if I've ever mentioned it on here, but I still don't understand exactly, like, for all of the Glazers' commercial prowess, I don't understand how they let the Class of 92 stuff slip from underneath. That's just, as we've now seen, that is just a gold mine of content, which United don't actually exploit or can't exploit. I don't know which one of those it is.
I remember David Gill said years ago, he said, MUTV's, and it was basically at break even. And he gave an interview talking about how they consider it to be a niche product. You've got 1 billion people interested in United, so their own surveys say, and this is what they tell sponsors. And then you have this underfunded media property. And you cannot put out crap programming and expect it to reach a massive audience. So, and their commercial strategy on this one is really weird. I think I've said it before, right? There's one fee you can pay in the UK, and it's like, I can't remember what it is, £10 a month or whatever, but you can buy it from any app store for like $4.99. Not per month, for the entire year, right? So, and for this type of content, it wouldn't be bad doing a freemium model either, right? So, it's on MUTV or it's on YouTube. Pick your poison. YouTube's obviously the biggest platform. You pay. You don't get all. You only get 70% of the revenues, depending on like how big you are. And then you could do other programming that is niche that people really want, like whether that is the under 18s and academy stuff or something else, right? Exclusive interviews, insights, whatever. So it feels underexploited, that asset. They are doing this documentary with Amazon, are they? It's not the fly on the wall stuff. It's
Lionsgate.
Lionsgate.
The TV series.
They always used to claim in their investor calls that they were a media platform that happened to do sport, basically. And they're not really, because they don't do the media stuff very well.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
As we're talking here, I'm coming up with content ideas in the sense of, if they lent into YouTube, they've got enough famous fans or followers, whatever you want to call them, to do some pretty interesting collaborations that could actually really differentiate us versus everyone else and turn us, more into this brand and bring more people in, tell them about United's story, etc., etc. And I think, also to come back onto this commercial point, whilst, we've still got quite a lot of open inventory, there is also the stadium financing piece.
Yeah.
Also just a revenue maximization opportunity. So like taking each of those, I'm hoping that we have deals lined up such that if we're in the Champions League, we'll get a little bit of a boost on the value. Away we go, jobs are good. And the other way is, do they, instead of segregating everything, kind of wrap it all together as one? And I'm not sure whether they would necessarily do that with the sleeve sponsor, but they could with the training ground to provide, additional funding for whether it's a stadium or maybe even the academy. That funds your academy, say you get a 30 million deal, that funds the academy. That's £30 million you can spend on the squad each year.
Yeah. Yes, the stadium financing and or naming rights will be a very interesting process when we get a little closer to that. It is moving forward extremely slowly on that one.
River Plate just did a 10-year, $110 million deal with Live Nation for naming rights. So I'm like, if they can fetch that, I mean...
In Argentina, which is historically at least not a very stable economy. That's a whole different discussion on what Javier Milei is doing there. All right. Briefly, reports this week that the Glazer family are looking to buy an IPL franchise. They have previously, they have form here, right? They bought a franchise in the Dubai Stars League or whatever it's called. I forget now.
Yeah.
Not the best of the global franchises, which it seemed the players just kind of rotate around them a little bit. They haven't bought into the US Major League Cricket, it's called. I think it's slowly growing here. There's only like 6 or 7 franchises, and they played their games in like 1 or 2 locations.
Yeah.
It's supposed to develop from next year to local stadia and stuff like that. What are they trying to buy, and why are they trying to do it?
The reported bid, and I will caveat, don't quite know the veracity of this, Royal Challengers Bengaluru. So apparently there's 9 parties competing for it, attracted a $1.8 billion bid. I think it was Avram Glazer that was reported as the bidder.
Right. Busy week for him. Last week in the Epstein files. This week bidding for an IPL franchise.
There you go. Just, another day in the life of a billionaire. But, if that is true, $1.8 billion, significant amount. I don't know his finances.
Does he have that money?
Don't know his finances well enough. But yeah, if you're putting 2 and 2 together and wanted to come up with anywhere between 4 and 4,000, there might be something in that. But yeah. Early reporting at this.
I don't think he's got that money, but let's speculate on where he may be getting that money from. All right. Well, that's United's transfer market. It'll be an interesting summer for sure. It would be very good to have some kind of magic silver bullet. I don't know what that one is. Someone bidding $100 million for Diogo Dalot. He's the world's best right back. If you're listening, do it. Go for it.
You might have just named the wrong Portuguese player. That might be the silver bullet.
You know what? Given that contract, that's correct. On the 65 million release clause for Bruno Fernandes to a non-Premier League club, you're not going to buy his numbers back with 65 million. I'll tell you that for sure. No chance. Double it. United will not be able to square that circle if we get the double whammy of no Champions League football and Bruno Fernandes saying, "Yeah, time's up." That is going to be very painful.
Yeah, no Champions League, no Bruno, no Casemiro. That's not a fun outlook.
No. All right, we're going to end on some major doom-mongering. Come on, United, beat Spurs. Revenge for Bilbao. We're waiting for it. We didn't get it at the what's it called? Tottenham Hotspur Stadium earlier this year, but let's hope so. Now, come on. Thanks, Jamie. Thanks, everyone, for listening. We'll catch you after the Spurs game.
What is natural? When you read natural flavors on a label, most people don't realize it's often not real food at all. Those hidden ingredients quietly work against how your body feels and functions over time. That's why Just Ingredients uses only real food ingredients, so you know exactly what you're putting in your body. Stop guessing. Start knowing at justingredients.us.